In 1856, railway workers in British India ran out of ballast. They found a supply nearby. Bricks, millions of them, ancient, hard, perfectly uniform, already made, just lying there in a mound in the desert. So they crushed them and laid 100 miles of track on top. Underneath was a city, 40,000 people, streets laid out on a grid, covered drains running beneath every road, bathrooms in ordinary houses, 3,500 years before Rome managed it, and a written language that nobody, then or since, has ever been able to read. No one knew it was there. No one had missed it. That is what a lost civilization actually is, not one that vanished, one we stopped being able to read. Here are 12 of them, what they built, how they ended, and which of them were never lost at all. Start with the one under the railway. The Indus Valley covered more ground than Egypt and Mesopotamia combined. Cities 1,000 kilometers apart, built to the same brick proportions, standardized weights, accurate to a fraction of a gram, municipal drainage, and almost nothing else. No palaces, no royal tombs, no giant statues of anybody. Whoever ran this place did not build monuments to themselves, which is so unusual for the ancient world that we still can't explain it. Around 1900 BC, the cities emptied, the rivers shifted, the monsoon weakened. People moved east and became something else. We have 4,000 of their inscriptions. We cannot read a single one. Then it gets stranger. In southern Turkey, on a hill called Göbekli Tepe, there are rings of carved stone pillars, some of them 16 feet tall, weighing 10 tons, covered in foxes, vultures, scorpions. They were raised 11,500 years ago, before farming, before pottery, before the wheel, by people who were supposed to be wandering hunters who somehow organized themselves to quarry and carve and lift all that. And then, after generations of use, they buried it, deliberately, backfilled their own temple with rubble until the hill looked like a hill again. We don't know why. That isn't a hole in the record, that is the record. Further north, in what is now Ukraine and Romania, the Cucuteni-Trypillia culture built settlements of up to 15,000 people, some of the largest on Earth at the time. And roughly every 60 to 80 years, they burned them down, every house, to the ground. Then rebuilt on top of the ashes. Not a war, not an accident. The pattern, repeated for over 1,000 years. Whatever that ritual meant, it mattered more to them than everything they owned. On Crete, the Minoans painted their walls with dolphins and ran water through clay pipes, while most of Europe was still in huts. 60 miles north of them, the volcano at Thera detonated. They didn't die that day. The end took another century and a half. Ash, tsunami, broken trade, and eventually Greek-speaking Mycenaeans running their palaces. Their writing, Linear A, has never been deciphered. The script that replaced it, Linear B, was cracked in 1952 and turned out to be early Greek. The older one still refuses to speak. Then, around 1177 BC, the entire system went down at once. Not one kingdom, 8. Mycenae, Hattusa, Ugarit, the great powers of the Bronze Age, burned or abandoned inside roughly a generation. Trade routes, writing, whole administrations, gone. In the ruins of Ugarit, archaeologists found a clay letter still sitting in the oven that was baking it. It reports enemy ships on the coast and asks for help. It was never sent. The city fell first. South of Egypt, the kingdom of Kush did something no one expects. At Meroë, they built pyramids, steeper, narrower, and far more numerous than Egypt's. Around 250 of them still stand. They smelted iron on an industrial scale, and they wrote in their own alphabet. We can pronounce Meroitic. We mostly cannot understand it, which is a very particular way to be lost. The words survived, the meaning didn't.
In the Peruvian desert, the Nazca scraped hundreds of figures into the ground. A hummingbird, a monkey, a spider, so large that they only resolve from the air. They also cut down the huarango, a tree with roots 40 feet deep, holding the desert soil, holding the water table, holding the whole fragile system in place. When the El Niño floods arrived, there was nothing left to hold. The desert took the fields. They didn't fail to notice their environment. They engineered their own exposure to it. 12,000 feet up in the Andes, Tiwanaku farmed ground that should not have been farmable. They cut raised beds with water channels between them. The water soaked up the day's heat and released it at night, so frost never killed the crop. It fed a city where nothing should grow. Then, around 1,000 years ago, the rains stopped. For decades.
Their technique was so effective, it was rediscovered in the 1980s. Farmers use it there today. In Cambodia, Angkor was the largest pre-industrial city on the planet. Somewhere near 1 million people, spread across an area the size of a modern metropolis. It ran on water. Reservoirs, canals, embankments, a hydraulic machine built to bank the monsoon and spend it slowly through the dry season. Then the monsoon turned erratic. Brutal droughts, broken by floods violent enough to tear the channels apart. The system silted, then failed. Angkor Wat itself never fully emptied. Monks stayed on for centuries, but the machine that fed the city had stopped. And in Illinois, there was a city of 20,000 people. Cahokia was bigger than London at the same moment in history. 120 earthen mounds, a timber circle aligned to the solstice, a plaza you could fit 30 football pitches inside. By 1350, it stood empty. Flooding, drought, deforestation, and probably politics. It is a 40-minute drive from St. Louis, and most Americans have never heard of it. In Greenland, the Norse lasted 5 centuries. Farms, a cathedral, a bishop, trade with Norway. Then the climate cooled, the sea ice thickened, and the ships stopped coming. They kept farming cattle in a place that punishes cattle. They did not adopt the technologies of the people who were thriving right next to them. Around 1450, they were gone. The Inuit, living in the same cold, are still there. And then Easter Island, where the story you have been told is probably wrong. The famous version, the islanders cut down every tree to move their statues, ruined the island, and destroyed themselves. A parable about humans wrecking their own home. The evidence has moved on. Polynesian rats, arriving with the first canoes, ate the palm seeds and stopped the forest regrowing. The population appears to have been stable when Europeans arrived. Islanders were still raising moai. What actually broke Rapa Nui was Peruvian slave raiders in the 1860s and the smallpox they brought back with the survivors. A population of thousands fell to 111 people. They did not collapse. They were raided, and then they were blamed for it. Which brings us to the part this kind of list usually leaves out. Some of these civilizations are not lost at all. The Maya are the clearest case. The Maya collapse describes certain lowland cities being abandoned around 900 AD. It does not mean a people disappeared. There are roughly 6 million Maya alive today, speaking around 30 Mayan languages. They never went anywhere. In the American Southwest, the cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde and Chaco are still often labeled Anasazi, a Navajo-derived word meaning roughly enemy ancestors. The Pueblo peoples are the descendants. They know where their ancestors went. They went with them. So the honest version is this. Some of these societies genuinely ended. Some were ended by somebody else, and some of them simply stopped being written about by the people keeping the records, which is not the same thing as disappearing, though it looks identical from the archive. 12 is not all of them. It is not close. There are hundreds, and the ones we have never found outnumber the ones we have. The pattern underneath them is the same every time. not stupidity, not decadence. Almost always a system that worked beautifully until the conditions it assumed quietly changed. And no civilization has ever believed it was the last generation. If you want the one that was dismissed for 2 centuries and then turned out to be right, it's on the channel. Subscribe. There is a great deal more of this than anybody told you.